Hello everybody and welcome to Excel Virtual Global 2024. My name is Tim Heng and I'm one of the directors of Some Product. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing me, it means that I've not been called upon to run this first session, but at the same time I am here to run this first session. So you may have heard this already. This event is for charity. A lot of people have been working hard behind the scenes to make this event a success. So on behalf of Some Product, I'd like to thank you all for coming and supporting us, for attending, and for any donations that you might be putting through to your favorite charity. I've been given the glory or the grace to run the first session yet again this year. I don't know why Liam keeps putting me up for this, but here I am again. So this year, I'm going to be running a session on trying to perform calculations using forms and Power Automate. Now, this is an interesting one. Speaking of charities, this was inspired by the work I've been doing for my son's preschool, ironically enough. They're not-for-profit preschools, so they operate on a shoestring budget and rely on the support of parents to sort of do all the fundraising and technical things that perhaps preschool teachers might not be able to. And one of those things was involving trying to encourage people to buy things like sausage sizzles and cake stall tokens and all of these little gold coin donation type things to make a fundraising event cashless and to pre-order these things. And the difficulty of this was that we used forms to go off and gather data to see what people would purchase and what they'd like to do. Well, yeah, that's easy enough. Anybody can create a form to do this. The challenge of this was trying to then feed back something to the people entering data into the form to say, well, you've ordered 10 of these, and you've ordered 12 of those, you've ordered 5 of these. How much does it all actually cost, and how are you going to pay us? And this is something that we realized very quickly that forms doesn't do very well. So we had to look further afield and settled on Power Automate as our solution. And so this is essentially what we're going to be trying to cover today accordingly. We're going to be looking at how to look at the process of trying to do these calculations in forms, realize why that doesn't work when you're sending results back to the person who's actually filling out the forms, and how do we work around it using Power Automate. So we've got a couple of ways that we can work around this, and in our instance, we'll talk through, I guess, the thought process of why we figured this was the easiest approach. So for those people, if you're trying to work out, is this something that is of interest to you? We'll be touching on forms, we'll be looking at Excel Online a little bit briefly, and we'll be looking, or primarily focusing in on Power Automate. That being said, if this doesn't interest you at all, there are plenty of other sessions here on Excel, on VBA, on AI, on a range of other topics. So please do check out the rest of the schedule and tune in when there's something that is more up your alley. So with that in mind, what we're going to do, we're going to cut to a demo because the last thing I want to do is do a death by PowerPoint presentation. What we're going to be doing is focusing on all of those interesting things that we can practically do in Forms, in Excel Online, and in Power Automate. So here we are in Forms. I've got an untitled form. This is a brand new form. You can see that I've got Copilot, and so Forms has asked me perhaps what sort of form would I like to create using Copilot. I'd like to point out that I did actually try to create a form using Copilot, and it wasn't terribly successful, to be honest. It struggled a lot with the prompts that I was trying to use. That being said, this is not a Copilot session, so I'm not going to even start with trying to draft something with Copilot. We're going to close this little Copilot prompt, and we're going to get started in the main form area. Now, obviously, I don't want to share all the things that I did for the preschool, so what I'm going to do is create a hypothetical form about trying to gather some sort of sales or order form for a consulting business. So we'll call this a order form for consulting. Let's create a quick subtitle. This is a quick order form to allow people to book training and consulting services. Hooray, I can type. Alrighty. Now, what we're going to want is a couple of questions. What are the sorts of things that a consulting business might offer? Something that offers training, consulting services, and might offer face-to-face training. So we'll start off with a quick text question that says, how many days of face-to-face training do you want? And this is going to cost $5,000 per day. I've got no idea whether that is exorbitant or whether that's a fair price or a bargain, depending on where you are in the world and what your currency is. But I'm going to use these numbers to start off with. Now, if we want this to sort of stand up to scrutiny when we're collecting data and we're putting this all together, I want this to be a number. So I'm going to need to make sure that that these values that go in are numbers. So it's going to be a number type. It's going to be a number. Perhaps it might be, if I try and force it to be greater than or equal to X, then it's going to force people to actually have an answer there of 0 or 1 or whatever it might be. I kind of don't mind that. At the same time, I also kind of want people to have the ability to skip the question if they don't want to answer it. So I'm going to just leave it as an is number and allow people to essentially have 0 as just being a blank. If you don't want face-to-face training, then you don't have to enter a value in here. Okay. So, second question. I'm just going to copy that first question just to save myself a little bit of time. And I'm going to ask the second question being, how many consulting hours? How many hours of consulting time do you want? And it's clear I can't type. Up to 60 hours is going to be 300 per hour. 61 plus hours will be 270 per hour for all hours. Okay, so the concept behind this is that if you're going to be booking up to 60 hours, then you'll get a certain rate. If you're going to be booking 61 or more hours, then you're going to get a discounted rate, and that discounted rate is going to apply for all of the hours. So conceptually, this would be your bulk booking discount, right? It means that your 61st hour is actually going to save you money because you're sort of getting a discount on all of the hours that run up to 60. But that's okay. It's not like someone's going to book exactly 61 hours most of the time. So this is another sort of typical sort of problem that you want. This is something that's going to be formula driven. So if I have sort of if the number of hours is between 0 to 60, then it's going to be X times 300 per hour. If the number is greater than 60, then it'll be X times 270 per hour. Simple sort of if logic. If we're working in Excel, this will be pretty straightforward. But what we're going to see is that Forms and Power Automate will have a bit more of a tough time with it, but we'll get there. Next question that we're going to have is something that's going to be a little bit trickier, right? We're going to say, how many people do you want to register for online training? Pricing for people 1 to 10 is going to be $400 a person. Pricing for people 11 to 20 will be $300 per person. Pricing for people 21 plus will be $200 a person. So this is going to be, again, a different sort of concept, right? The first 10 people will be $400 each, and then the 11th person is going to be $300. It's not that you get the first 10 people for $300 once you tick over the 11 person mark. it's going to try to look at ranges, and so you're going to spend $4,000 on the first 10, you're going to spend $3,000 on the second 10, and then it's going to be $200 a person after that. So different pricing mechanisms, tiers that we're going to be using here. So this is our basic order form. If I were to use this, nothing is actually required here. I'm assuming that some people are going to be putting in some things for face-to-face training, some for consulting time, some for online training, some for combinations of these. So theoretically, I could save this and start collecting responses. And so if I want to collect a response, let's make it so that anybody can respond, because obviously I want this to be something that can go out to the public. I can copy this link and I can post that link into different places wherever I want to use it. Alright, just going to open up a private window just so I can see what this looks like when I paste it in. And it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to allow me to enter in values for face-to-face training, for consulting time, and online training. So just say I want 2 days of face-to-face training, I want 50 hours of consulting time, and I want 5 people to register for my online training. Cool, okay. Now, when you go into an online store and you try and purchase and order all these different things, you might receive some sort of a receipt or an invoice or something at the back end that says, hey, okay, so you've got this item here, you want 2 of these, and this is going to be $5,000, so you're going to pay $10,000 for this. You're going to spend 50 hours at $300 an hour, you're going to be spending $15,000 on that. You're going to be buying 5 people at $400 per person, that's going to be $2,000. So $10,000 plus $15,000 plus $2,000, basic math is going to be $27,000 that I need to spend. So when I submit this form, I'd love to be able to get something back that says, hey, you've got $27,000 to spend. But unfortunately, forms just says your response was submitted. Okay, what can you do next? You can't really do anything. Forms doesn't have the ability to do those calculations for you and sort of give you that feedback straight away. So we have to think of another way of working around this. Let's close this. We can see that we do have one response. We could perhaps do some of that calculation in Excel Online instead. So if I open these results in Excel, let's open this up. It's going to create an Excel workbook. It's going to attach a link to the form, to this Excel workbook. This is, by the way, so much better than the default the forms used to have, which was to create a brand new workbook every time you hit review responses and just sort of export the forms data to there. This, at least, is synced back to the Microsoft form, and so anytime there's new things that are saved, it will continue to update. It's not just an export at that point in time. So kudos to whoever's made that change at Forms. This is a really great improvement to Forms. Alright, so theoretically I could simply just work these calculations out in Excel Online, right? So I know that my face-to-face training is going to be $5,000 a day. So I could have a thing that says face-to-face is going to be that times 5,000. I could have a thing that says, okay, if up to 60 hours, if it's less than or equal to 60, then it's going to be 300. If it's greater than 60, then it's going to be 270. So for consulting time, my formula might be 50 times if that 50 is less than or equal to 60, then it'll be $300, otherwise it'll be $270. I appreciate this is not best practice, by the way, with all of this hard coding I've got for 300 and 270 and all the rest of that. But yeah, this is not intended to be a financial modeling session. It's not intended to be an Excel best practice session. It's simply supposed to be trying to highlight what are the issues with trying to work with forms and Power Automate. So face-to-face, consulting, and then online training. Online training is a little bit trickier, right? So if I have essentially the minimum of this and 10 people, times 400. That'll be the first pricing point, I guess, for how many that I want to buy. So we'll call that online 1. Online 2, the second pricing point, if that was, say, 15, then what I might want to do is say, let's take the, if this is greater than 10, then let's take that minus 10. Let's say the maximum, the minimum of that minus 10 and 0 again. Well, I guess the minimum of that and 10, because we want to cap it at that 10 people. Otherwise, it'll be at 0, because if we have less than 10, obviously, we're not going to be including any people. So that'll be $300 per person. And online 3, if that is greater than 20, then I'll do the same sort of thing. The minimum of that minus 20. Actually, no. I can just take that minus 20. I don't even need the minimum. So that minus 20. Let's see. We'll wrap that in brackets and multiply that by 200 a person. Otherwise, it'll be 0. Cool. And just to do a quick test, if that was 15, say, then I get 5 people into this online 2 bracket at $300. If that was 25, I get 10 people into the online 2 bracket, and I get 5 people into the online 3 bracket. 5 times 200, $1,000. I think I'm fairly happy with how that formula is working. Again, don't really care about how it's working though. All I really want to highlight is that it is a calculation that's needing to be put into Excel Online. If I get a total, that total is going to be the sum of all of these figures here. Lovely. Alright, so I've got the data here in Excel Online. Now, I need some way to be able to send it back out to the person who's filling in the form. Now, there isn't really the information I need to send it out to them. Forms itself doesn't give me any real ability to send something out to users. If I go back to my questions and I try and set up my form, there are some settings that I can try and work through. There's my settings button over here. There are things like start dates, end dates, what are the question numbers, hide the submit another response option. There is an email notification of each response, but there's no real detail about how do you actually send something to the user. Maybe I can customize this thank you message and give them some information there. So I can tick that. The basic response is just your response was submitted. So I could say something like, please make payments to XYZ bank account. And that would work. That would show some information for users at the end of the day, but it wouldn't give them the information that they need, which is what is my total cost. And so what I'd like to do is have something here that would actually send an email back out to users. Because it's an anonymous, like anyone can submit a response, there may not be an email that's associated. This email column in the forms is generally associated with cases where people are logged into your tenant when they're submitting. So that's not going to work in this case. So what I'm actually going to need is a couple of new questions that say, well, who are you and what's the email address that we're using? So I'm going to add in 2 new questions. First one is, what is your name? And we'll move that right up to the very top. The second question is going to be, what is your email address? And so in this case, we'll want both of these to be required. We really want to make sure that people have a name and have an email address. Okay, so what is your name? What's your email address? Hopefully this will be synced back to my Excel form as well. What is your name? What is your email address? The new questions that are associated there. So, if I were to resubmit this, let's collect responses again, copy the link, Let's open it up in the private browser again. Let's say, what is your name? It's going to be Tim Heng. What's my email address? It's tim.heng@someproduct.com. And suppose I wanted the same sort of thing. Two days of face-to-face training. I want 70 hours of consulting time this time. I just say I want 25 people registered for online training. Let's submit this. There we go. Please pay payments to XYZ bank account. That's that information that I updated in the responses submitted section. If I close down this and go over to my form, I should see I've got this new set of responses. Now, Tim Heng has submitted a thing. He's got these values, and it's worked its way out to a total. Excellent. So far, so good. It's doing its job. So calculations are being done here in Excel Online. And to send this out to users, we're going to need to find some sort of a trigger using Power Automate that says, whenever this table gets updated, send out an email to the users. So we're going to go to make.powerautomate.com, and we're going to try and find a trigger that looks at a table and sees when it gets updated, when there's a new row that's added to the table, and then send an email out accordingly. So where can we find, if we're ever not sure how to use Power Automate, or what trigger I need, or what are the exact flows that we need to create, often it's a good idea just to look through the templates. So if I want to search through the templates, I might say something like, send an email when a row is added to an Excel table, and see what comes out. Absolutely nothing so far. Okay, maybe I need to use some slightly different triggers. Excel table new row. This adds a new row. Okay, not quite what I want. Maybe what I can do whenever an Excel worksheet is updated, right? Excel workbook updated. Nope. How about anything on Excel? Schedule an Office script to run in Excel. Okay. Not quite what I'm looking for. You know, this is not actually working. This is not working the way that I wanted to. If I do anything in Excel, track emails in Excel Online Business Sheet, not quite what I want. Update an Excel table from Power BI, not quite what I want. Get a row from Excel Business and send an email. Now this is pretty close. But the problem is, it's not actually going to look for new rows. Track new files. So I'm quickly looking through and seeing that I'm not finding anything that's particularly useful for me to look at a sheet and see when it's been changed and update things accordingly. If I wanted, I could probably have something that says SharePoint file update. And so whenever a SharePoint file was updated, then do something. And then it could probably go to the form, go to that file, find the row, find the latest row, and then send it out. Now, I really don't like this sort of approach to Power Automate. And that's because when you're trying to do row by row changes, SharePoint's going to get confused. SharePoint's going to look at it and say, well, this workbook has been updated. But if there are 2 or 3 or 5 different rows that get updated at the same point in time, then some sort of SharePoint file update that looks at the latest row that was added in is probably going to miss rows. If 5 rows get added in very quick succession, then the file's going to update once, and SharePoint's going to pick the latest row and not send emails out for the 4 prior rows that were added in. So what we're going to do instead is look at it from the form side. So send an email when a form response is received. Something like that, right? And so here we go, send an email to responder when a response is submitted in Microsoft Forms. This is a pretty good option. Like, it's pretty close fit to what we're looking for. I'm going to click on that template, and we're going to use this in order to try and complete our form. So it's going to connect to Forms, it's going to connect to Outlook. Excellent. And here what we're going to do is look and see what the Power Automate flow is going to look like. We'll have when a new response is submitted, so that's when someone actually sends an answer to the form. We're going to pick up the response details, so what is the information about that response, and then we're going to perform some sort of action. I don't quite know why there's a condition here. So let's see, provide the values to compare if the body responder is not equal to anonymous. That's not what I want. I actually want it to be to send to anybody. So in this case, it's I'm going to need to change this. So instead of saying not equal, like the body responder is not equal to anonymous, and if I can remind you what the body responder is, I believe that's probably this email column, right? So if it's anonymous, so if it's someone within your tenant, then it'll have the email address that I can use to send back to them. So what we'll probably want to do is change this to the email option and see if it's not blank or something like that. But let's come back to that one. So when a new response is submitted, let's start off with this. We need to start off with the form that we want to use. So we're going to choose this new order form for consulting. That's the latest form that we've just created. Okay. When we get a response, we're going to choose again this order form for consulting, and so it's going to look for a response. It's going to get that response from that order form for consulting, and then we can apply that condition check. So maybe instead of this body responder bit, what we can do is create a new row here that says, let's look for the email, right? We've got this form or this field for the email. So what we can do when we click on different items in Power Automate these days, you get this option to either pre-fill the data from somewhere else in the flow, or this FX trying to insert some sort of expression or function that you want to use to calculate something. In this case, I want to try and find the emails from the previous steps. So from the get response details step, there was a bunch of different questions here. I'm looking for this, what is your email address? Now, this is different from Responder's email. Responder's email is the system-generated, SharePoint-generated one. SharePoint, Azure, whatever tool is generating this email. But whatever it is, it's the one that's attached to your tenant. What we want is the one that people are actually entering into the document. So what is your email address? If this is, let's see, not blank, if it contains an @ that's probably what I want, right? If they just put in some sort of junk there, I don't actually really want to send an email out. So if it contains an @ symbol, then I'm happy to send out the email, okay? This other step I can delete now. It's not really relevant to me. Cool. So once I actually want to send an email, I can click down on this Outlook option, this Outlook module in my flow, and I can see on the left-hand side this email that's getting drafted. Who is it being sent to? It's being sent to, I'm going to use that pre-fill again. We're going to put in the email address and get rid of this body responder bit. Oops, deleted too much. Let's try that again. Email address. Subject, Microsoft form response, and then it's got the date here. Don't really care about the date, and we should probably customize this. Consulting order form submission. So whoever receives this is going to get an email back from Power Automate that says, consulting order form submission. What are the details that you might have? Now, I don't really care about this Microsoft Forms response has been submitted by so-and-so at such and such date. That's just the default. What I might say is, hi, name, thank you for ordering from ABC Consulting. Here is what you've ordered. And then I might list out all the things they've ordered. Face-to-face, training, days, there's so many days. Numbers of consulting hours, hours is so much. Online training, registrations is so much. Total cost. How much is it going to be? Please make payment to XYZ bank account to process your order. Excellent. Okay, so all of these bits I now want to sort of fill from the response details. So I might say name. Instead of name, I'm going to use that pre-fill. What is your name? Hi, Tim Heng. Thank you for ordering from ABC Consulting. Here's what you've ordered. You've ordered how many face-to-face training days? This many days. How many consulting hours? This many hours. How many online training registrations? This many online training registrations. So it's really easy to start creating emails that pull in data from forms and send them back to the user. Excellent. So we come to total cost. All right, this seems like it should be straightforward. Instead of just using the entering data from previous steps, let's use the expressions, the functions. Now, I'm an Excel user. I know how these sorts of things work, right? So I think I should be able to just say, okay, well, let's take the detail from, say, the number of training days. And let's multiply that by 5,000. And I'll say, yeah, let's add that in. Let's just use that. The problem is, that doesn't work. Let's save this and try and get this to work. It fails, it can't save. The input parameters of operation condition contains invalid expressions. Now, the thing that I kind of hate about Power Automate is that this doesn't actually tell you where which expression is invalid or incorrect. So if you've got multiple different expressions here, it doesn't sort of specify exactly which one is wrong. So probably what I would suggest if you are trying to do this, set up your expressions in different boxes, like different sort of modules, and test each one individually, one at a time, to make sure that it works. So this is wrong. And the main reason for that is that the syntax is not like Excel. I can't just use times 5,000. I can't just use plus 5,000, right? There are functions that Power Automate uses to make this work. And so if I want to make this work, mul, there we go. I need to use multiplication. And this multiplication in this case is going to be based on my dynamic content, how many days of face-to-face training do I want, and the number 5,000. Right? So it's going to take me 2 days of training times 5,000 is going to give me $10,000. And now when I try and save it, oof, still doesn't work. Did I save that properly? No, I didn't save it, that's why. Let's try again. Mul, open brackets, get my dynamic content, face-to-face training, 5,000, and let's click on update. There we go, that saved my function. When I save my flow now, this seems to work. It's going to let me save and allow me to run this. All right, so let's start adding in all these other bits that we need. Well, I need to, again, I would normally just say plus mul and then give me the number of consulting time that I want times, say, 300. But of course that doesn't work. I'm going to need to add that to the other set that I need, right? I'm going to need to take that and use the add function. Let's put a comma there to say these are the things that I'm going to add. This is my face-to-face training days. This is my hours of consulting time. Now, hours of consulting is a little bit different, right? We're going to have an if function here to try and choose whether it's 300 or whether it's 270 that we're charging. So what I'm going to have is an extra thing here that says, instead of just 300, if, and I'm going to need these extra conditions that say if the number of hours is greater than 60. Now, here's one frustrating thing about Power Automate. When you add on things, it kind of moves you straight outside the brackets. I'm actually outside the if bracket right now. I need to take a step back into the if in order to try and fill this out, which is really, really awkward. So one was the mul, one was the if. If you're getting confused with this, yeah, I'm also similarly getting confused with this. Let's try and expand this out and see. Oops, what have I done? Let's try that again. Let's try, lost it. Annoying. Okay, let's try and expand this out to full screen. Why is this not scrolling nicely? No, this is not scrolling nicely. Perhaps it's, okay, let's copy this out. I might open up a notepad and see if this makes it easier to just write it up. So let's create a new notepad. Let's copy all of this. So this one here was my face-to-face training cost. Let's do consulting hours. So consulting hours is going to be this combination of things, right? We're going to take the multiplication of dynamic content, consulting time. So this is going to be my consulting time. And I want something here in between the consulting time and the end of the multiplication to say if the consulting time is greater than 60, then do something, otherwise do something else. If it's greater than 60, I want it to be 270, otherwise I want it to be 300. Now this, theoretically, should work. Let's close that, update that. Wait, the expression's invalid. What is it doing? Why is that invalid? Let's try that again. Let's search for that if expression. If the consulting time is greater than 60. Why doesn't that work? Maybe I need something that's greater than. If it's greater than, I can't even use this greater than or equal to thing. I need a greater function. How annoying. Okay, so we're going to use this greater function. If that value is greater than 60. I'm just going to copy all of that back into here, right? If instead of this greater than 60, we're going to use this greater function. If the amount is greater than 60 using the greater function, then 270, otherwise 300. Let's copy all of that, bring it back into Power Automate. Update, and let's see if this works. Let's save it. This will test whether it works or not. If we're not getting an expression error, we're happy with this. Excellent. Okay, so now I'm starting to learn some of the syntax, right? I can't use operators. I can't use this multiplied plus greater than. I need to sort of function each thing out. And so when I try and do something like my online training registrations, this is going to be a little bit awkward because let's open this up again. Let's check the dynamic content. Dynamic content for registering online training is this code over here. So we're going to multiply the number of people that we have. But remember that there was a thing that said if it's greater than or less than 10, we need to sort of take it into several different parts. So if we try and work out what is the first 1 to 10 values, 1 to 10 will be something that needs to check, are we greater than or less than 10, right? So if this is greater than 10, then what are we going to do? We're going to say, if it's greater than 10, we're going to just say how much the training registration is, right? It's going to be 4,000 for the group. Otherwise, if it's not greater than 10, let's break it out. Otherwise, it's going to be the multiplication of our option times 400. That's kind of awkward, but I think that will work, right? Let's test that. Let's update it and see if that's happy. Save it to check my syntax, make sure that's okay. Cool. So that's the 1 to 10. Now we're going to need an extra thing for the 11 to 20. We could probably do a similar sort of thing here that says if it's greater than 20, then assume it's going to be this much, right? So if it's greater than 20, then we're going to fill out all of these people. Otherwise, if it's less than 20, we're going to need to do something a little bit different. What are we going to need to do? We're going to need to consider if it's greater than 10 as well, right? So it kind of reverts back to this one. If this amount here is greater than 10, then I can multiply all of this by 300. Well, I need to multiply that minus 10. That's awkward. Okay, what's my code for subtracting things? If I can add, maybe I need to subtract. Subtract, is that what we need to do? Sub, okay. Minus and, okay, I'm going to hope that this works. We're going to use sub to say sub this body amount, like whatever the response is, and we're going to subtract 10 from it. So if it's greater than 10, we're going to take whatever input it is, minus 10, and give us this result times 300. If that's not true, it'll be 0. Cool. So I'll copy that, paste it in, check that this works, save it to make sure that it works. I'm assuming it does. Green, good. Okay, that's my 11 to 20. 21 plus should hopefully be a little bit easier. I can just say if it's greater than 20, I can reuse that logic then. Then I can simply take whatever the amount is and multiply it by 200, right? So total number of items, total number of registrations minus 20 times $200. Great. If not, it's going to be 0. Brilliant. I think this is all that it takes. Let's test this again to make sure this works. Let's update. Let's save. So those are my 5 components, right? I've got my face-to-face training costs, I've got my consulting hours, 1 to 10 online training registrations, 11 to 20, 21 plus. Cool. Now I just need to add these together. Now, in Excel, even if I have to use functions, like you think about the concat function or something like that, all I would need to do is simply add, and then maybe I've got function number 1. And then I would have function number 2, copy, paste. And then maybe what I could do is add on function number 3. Now, the problem with this is that this doesn't actually work. It thinks it works. It thinks it works. But when I test this, let's create a new flow. A new trigger to get it to work. So we'll collect a new response. Oops, let's go back to my questions. Collect responses, copy that link, create a new value. Tim Heng, tim.heng@someproduct.com. I want 2 days of face-to-face trading. I want 100 hours of consulting time, and I'll take 15 online training registrations. Submit. Excellent. Let's close that. Let's go and take a look at our flow. It failed. Oof. Okay. What's going on? Well, it failed at the send an email step. Fair enough. The expression expected the first parameter to be an integer or decimal number. Apparently, the number that we're getting out of forms is a string. That's awkward. Okay, so forget about the fact that it's going into Excel as a number. Power Automate's receiving it as a string. So in addition to everything else that might possibly be wrong, let's go back to my flow. I will need to modify this and add in these extra things that say, okay, let's turn this into an integer, which I think I can do by just wrapping the integer, like an int open brackets value to all of these things. Excellent. All right, so let's go and find all of these bits and just wrap an int around each one. All right, and hopefully with the benefit of creative editing, you'll have skipped through me writing int everywhere. So let's try again. Let's add up this first step. Let's add up the second step. Oops, down one more. And let's add up the third step. Now, one nice thing about this is that I don't need to sort of resubmit the response, right? If I go back to my, well, first of all, save it, and then if I go back to my test page, it can now see that I've recently tried to trigger this flow, and so I can reuse those inputs to feed it back into my result. Here we go. Here's the error that I was expecting to have, actually. The add function expects 2 numeric parameters. So I'm going to have this awkward situation that I can't just add 5 different parameters together. I need to chain my adds. And so instead of just having add parameter 1, parameter 2, and then parameter 3, I actually need to close off my first add and then add in a new add here in order to get this to work. Let's update that. Let's save this and let's test it. So let's rerun it with this test. It's gonna flow through. It's gonna run. It's gonna send this email out, and now it's gonna work because it's done this stupid thing where I need 2 adds to add 3 parameters together, or n minus 1 adds essentially. So that's irritating, but it's just going to be what we have to do, unfortunately. So if I want to copy in all of these extra parameters, what I'm going to need to do is add on an extra add here and an extra add there. And I'm going to need to add on, let's say I'm going to need to close brackets before adding on my next step. I'm going to need to close brackets before adding on my next step. Hopefully all of my brackets work there. Save this. Now when I test the flow again, the recently used trigger, let's use the same details. It's going to send through that email. And we're going to receive this email here that says, I have 2 training days, 100 consulting hours, 15 registrations. Total cost, $42,500. If I go back to my Excel form and check that, I can see all of that costs me $42,500. So all of that to say that we can send these automated emails out. Excellent. I can customize this now and put in all the relevant bits, like I can put in like a dollar symbol in front. I can do whatever I need to sort of pretty up the email to make it work. The key things that I wanted to highlight here were simply that it's not actually that straightforward to create this process. You'd think that forms would have something to send some sort of confirmation to say, well, what have you actually submitted in your form? And for anyone from Microsoft who's watching, this would be a really nice thing to add to forms, just something to be able to sort of trigger a response back to a user to say, this is an email question, and so automatically send an email back to this user with the information in their survey. Like, that would be really nice. But secondly, like, the ability to do calculations in here is a bit lacking in forms, and so to try and do it through Power Automate, it's just really awkward for folks who are coming from the Excel world, because you need to parameterize and function all of these things. I think this is probably more JavaScript, TypeScripty, for lack of a better term. But, to be able to add things, you need to add 2 parameters. And so to add 5 things together, I need to add 4 times to get it to work. Everything needs to be multiplied. For whatever reason, Forms is passing things on as strings rather than numbers. So, we need to work our way around those issues. So these are just things that, I guess, can trap you if you're trying to get this to work. Don't fall into these traps. Now that you've watched this video, you'll be able to see, I guess, how some of these problems occur and how to work your way around them. And yeah, this is essentially how it works. And hopefully, the net result of what you actually create out of all this is going to be worth the pain, the trial and error you might need to get it to work. So with that in mind, that brings us back to our evaluations. So thank you for attending the session on performing calculations using Forms and Power Automate. As I mentioned, my name is Tim Heng. I'm one of the directors at Some Product. Obviously, we're hosting Excel Virtually Global 2024, so we really appreciate all the feedback that you've got for these presentations. You're going to be seeing this evaluation screen a lot. In fact, for every single session, and so I encourage you to have the survey, funnily enough, the form survey, ready to go for each session. Please give us your feedback. We use this to try and work out whether we should be running different sessions or who we should be inviting back next year and so on. So if you don't want to see me here next year, please make a note of that accordingly. If you do want to see me here, please do as well. So with that in mind, there's also another message from the Microsoft Excel team. They are looking for research participants. For folks who have attended this session in Excel Virtually Global in the past, you would have seen this as well. It's a lot of fun to get involved in the research. Microsoft Excel team get to show you all these really cool things that are happening that other people don't get to play around with. Obviously, you'll need to sign off, sign your life away, and swear never to tell anybody what's going to happen. So do check it out. Do take part if you have the opportunity to, because it's really great. With all that in mind, thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you joining us for the rest of the sessions. Thank you very much, everyone.